City native will represent the state of Iowa as a Purple Heart recipient and one of the nation's 2023 Purple Heart Patriot Project honorees. U.S. Army Sergeant Patrick Burgess will represent his fellow Purple Heart heroes as Iowa's representative at a multi-day tribute to the courage and sacrifice of America's combat wounded. Burgess enlisted into the U.S. Army in June of 1967. After basic training at Fort Lewis, Washington, Burgess was sent to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where he received training in demolition and minesweeping. From there, he was deployed to Vietnam as a combat engineer with the 25th Infantry Division. Burgess returned to Vietnam in June 1969 with the 299th Combat Engineers. His unit was under a heavy siege when he arrived in the 4th Infantry Division. Along with his Purple Heart, Sergeant Burgess was awarded numerous medals and commemorations during his service.